Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 9, another 7 curious interesting things I saw last week, so let's crack on. The first one is Rift or Rift AR. So these are, what you could say, these are digital billboards in the real world. So the metaverse is coming to the realverse, or the world as we call it. And now this has been sort of muted for a while. We've seen demos like this, but this is now actually becoming a thing. So what you do is you find a location in the real world, you mint an NFT, you create an image or an animation that goes with it, and anybody then looking in that location can then see these NFTs or animations augmented onto the real world using glasses or I guess an iPhone or whatever. So as I say, if you are in the billboard world, then this sort of thing has been coming for a while, which is like, well, you spend a lot of money putting up billboards all around the world and keeping the latest technology, and then now if you've got augmented vision, then you don't need any of that anymore. Obviously, then it can be targeted, etc. So if you're in the world of billboards, this is a big deal. If you're in the world of trying to keep this sort of digital clutter away from the real world, this is a big deal as well, because this could become a complete mess. There you go. Anyway, on to slightly graver things. Obviously, there's been some fairly horrific news this week. Obviously, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now, this isn't the first time this has been seen, which is what you're seeing here, which is Google Maps predicting, or at least giving evidence that something is happening. So this was at 3 o'clock in the morning, just before the invasion started. As you can see, Google says there's a roadblock. Why is there a roadblock at 3 o'clock in the morning? Well, because there's a huge build-up of military equipment on the border. Now, what you're seeing in the background is actually from 2019. So this is the Atlantic Council did a report. This is all about what they call digital forensics, where they can use, for instance, Google's satellite imagery, which is kind of date stamped to different dates, to see what the difference between an area is before and after some sort of military conflict. So you can even see the black and white image on the right hand side. What they can do is they can actually look at the turning circle of vehicles from the marks it's left in the ground, and therefore try and figure out which vehicles they might have been that, for instance, launched missiles across a border. So so it's really interesting that these sorts of citizen journalism, essentially, the tools are in the hands of the people as well, so we can sort of start to see things as they're happening in what would otherwise be an information blackout. So yeah, as I say, sort of a grave situation, but a really interesting use of technology within it. Neural environments. So this is obviously a stock photo. This is not actually the thing, but what if you could use brain waves also to control virtual environments? So again, there's been a lot of research around this before, but this is the first time it's been included into a headset, or at least into this demo, whereupon somebody was either happy and they could move forwards, and then they were sad and then it would stop, for instance. So you can control the movement within a virtual environment using either just pure emotions, or if you moved your face, or you winced or you grimaced, then actually the detection of that in your brainwaves could actually be used to control your virtual environment. So this is great for accessibility, because whilst you might sort of not be able to use, for instance, a thumb pad or a controller or a mouse, then this might be a really simple way of moving left and right and training a device essentially to allow you to freely wander around a virtual world just using brainwaves. So I thought it was really, really interesting. And also, you know, if you're watching TV or if you're watching movies, and if it can detect your state of mind, then it can potentially throw extra things in, change the music. It can probably even edit it real time to either accentuate or alleviate some sort of emotion you're going through. So that could be quite interesting for entertainment too. There you go. HTC have jumped into the metaverse world. This is their promo video. Obviously, this is probably not exactly how it's going to be. This is probably enhanced, but by the way, nice legs on that wine there, as they say in the trade. So this is a slightly cliched experience, the way they've actually laid it out, which is something you would have expected. I mean, it's not a million miles away from what Facebook put out there. However, what they're saying is with their new, what they call their Flow VR headset. Now this is if you've not seen the Flow VR headset, it's a sort of a lightweight headset, should we call, and they were really sort of trying to talk about mental health and basically just sort of well-being, rather than this big bulky sort of AAA gaming device. So what they're assuming is it's a sort of relatively light experience, and they want to create this, what they call the Viveverse or Viveverse. That's what it is. So they've got lots of demos of it. I just thought it was really interesting. The more and more we're seeing these kind of owned demos, these sort of walled gardens, as we used to call them in the old internet days. It's not really what the metaverse was supposed to be for. You were supposed to freely walk within them. So obviously, if this works with a certain headset for a certain manufacturer, that's not really what the metaverse is supposed to be. However, let's keep an eye on it. Who knows? It might not be as creepy as it looks. There you go. Yeah, I had a little bit of fun with the writing on the left-hand side of this. But so this is Stephen Thaler, and who is trying again to try and get some recognition to AIs, or at least credit them with some sort of invention. So he's already tried. He has basically a platform that can invent things. Has already tried through several countries around the world. Some have said yes, most have said no. To can an AI be credited as an inventor? So it's going on a slightly different tangent on this one, which is, can an AI be credited as an artist? Can you get copyright of your art rather than a patent for your invention? Unfortunately, the US copyright folks have said no, back of the line basically. You need to be a human. Now we've heard this before, obviously with the patent thing, you need to be essentially human to do this. You need to have human authorship, it says. Now, this has been brought before the courts as well, trying to get animals, namely monkeys, to be credited as well. And unfortunately, they are not human either, so they are not credited with copyright either. So there you go. So if you are Stephen Thaler, a monkey or an AI, you're probably going to have a tough time trying to get copyright of your art. This does obviously flow into the likes of NFTs, where there are lots of essentially algorithms that can create the layers of NFT artwork, so you get special items, etc., etc. It seems none of those can actually be credited as copyrightable if they are generated from an AI. There you go. Speech. So this is SpeeChin, which I think is a great name. Anyway, so this is two students who have clearly got a good career ahead of them. They're from Cornell, and they've invented this really interesting device. It's a necklace with a camera on it, an infrared camera that actually looks at the mouth and can detect words when they are uttered. So if you're in an office, or basically if you have speech difficulties, you might want to control a device using your speech. So for instance, if you don't want to use your hands, in this case it's obviously controlling a Taylor Swift video or something, but if you utter these phrases, you sort of mumble them, you use the right sort of mouth movements but you don't actually say the words, then it can recognize those. So they've trained it, there's some great video actually if you watch the YouTube video just at the end of it where you can actually see the infrared sort of vision. They've just trained that, and it apparently works on 98 words so far, so roughly speaking half of them are English and half of them are Chinese. Obviously that can be extended, so you might use these as key commands, or for instance to control your software. There you go. So that is SpeeChin, which is, I think, it's great for accessibility, but also might just be really useful for the office. Who knows? And finally, we have digital dogs. Obviously, this is clearly a good idea. Dogs for the metaverse. Now, there have been several things. There's been crypto kitties, and obviously, Tamagotchi back in the day. However, I thought this is stepping over a slightly different line. The vision here is that you create your dog, your pet. It doesn't have to be a dog, I guess, but you create your pet, and it will then follow you around in your metaverse experience. So a little bit like Ready Player Me, which is sort of a universal avatar system. So if you don't have one of those, then definitely look at Ready Player Me. But the idea here would be that you have your dog, you train your dog, you name your dog, and then when you go into the metaverse, your dog is with you. And whichever metaverse you go to, obviously we've seen a HTC one, that might be a Facebook one, or it might just be this universal one of the future. Then your dog is with you with all your experiences and on the adventure with you. So there you go. As you can see on the right hand side, they are creating several NFT drops. Obviously cleverly thought this out, a bit of a story. One is the DNA vials, what are the breeds of dogs. Then they've got embryo dogs drops, and then they've got treat drops, and then they've got who let the dogs out drop, which is when the dogs actually appear. So there's plenty of ways to give them money, which is obviously sort of of what this is about as well. But there you go. I thought that was really interesting. You know, who is controlling the birds in the metaverse? Who's controlling the grass and the trees in the metaverse? So, and if you own a tree or a bench, maybe in the metaverse. So there's lots of accessories in the metaverse. Pets should not be seen as an accessory. They are their own sentient beings. However, I thought this was really good. There you go. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully that was interesting. If you liked it, give it a like. If you're not subscribed, then do subscribe. And hopefully I'll see you next week.